Well, I want to welcome this month's passenger profile guests, Anelda and Sean Spence. Welcome, you guys.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much for having
having
us.
us.
Thanks for doing this. I want to read your bio to give everybody some background on your guys. It's going to take a minute, so sit tight and have a listen to what you already know about yourselves. Um, Anelda has always been in love with the world of film and TV and the joy it brings, the marriage of picture and sound, the beauty of story and music. A South African native, she now lives in Nashville with her husband, Sean, Exhibit A, and their daughter, and a moody beagle, and writes songs for film and television when she's not working as a sound designer. With a history in film sound design combined with a deep love for music, she considers herself lucky to be constantly collaborating with inspiring storytellers, gifted musicians, and generally lovely human beings to bring music to the screen. Anelda is a versatile songwriter writing in multiple genres. She's had multiple indie artist cuts and has enjoyed seeing her music on films and TV shows on the CW, CBS, Hallmark, Lifetime, and many more. Anelda's husband and frequent partner in crime, Sean, has been working as a sound engineer for 20 years. Sean and Anelda both started out in the TV industry in South Africa, and that's how they met. He decided to move to Nashville because he loved all the music he listened to that was recorded there. They opened their recording studio in Nashville in 2012 and recently moved to Nolensville just down the road and finished out their new studio. Sean's a phenomenal recording engineer. I bet Anelda probably wrote that bio. Sean's a phenomenal recording engineer, producer, and mix and mastering engineer. And he's worked with dozens of local indie artists, as well as artists like Lucas Graham, Patrick Droney, Jenny Owens, and up and coming rock band Brother Maven. The main reason I decided that you'd be a great passenger profile is that whenever one of your songs has been played on an episode of TAXITV, the viewers get over the moon about it and often make comments like, wow, that sounds like it's radio ready. I agree with them. I think the main reason that your music is radio ready, besides just being really, really good, is that it sounds very contemporary, both in the writing style and the production as well. And as we all know, sounding contemporary is often a very desirable component in creating music that's good not just for radio or Spotify, but for TV, film, and advertising placements. It's also my experience that a lot of musicians get stuck in older eras and have a difficult time transitioning their style to something more contemporary. That alone really holds them back and limits the usability factor for their music. I noticed on your website for Blue Grotto, the studio that you own, says that Sean even says that publishers and agents would say things like your music doesn't sound current. So apparently it's not a problem just for some, but for many. So I don't know how I could use it, the publishers and agents would say. I took that feedback, meaning Sean, and refined my productions to make them better. And now I get regular placements. So, Sean, let's start with you. And I've got to say, this is the first time I've ever done two people for a passenger profile, let alone a husband and wife. So this is really cool. I'm also
Nice.
excited that both of you guys know your way around a studio, which is my favorite place to be.
Yeah,
Tell us how you went about making your productions sound more current, Sean.
that is a great question. I think the first step was honestly just recognizing that they weren't current, which is really hard for the ego to kind of go, okay, this learning to differentiate when you are in that current space or if you're kind of no, I'm sounding a bit old school. And then it just came down to listening lots to whatever's out there, the new stuff, um, analyzing the latest stuff that's out there. What instruments are they using, how are they using them, what do the vocals sound like, basically just listening a ton to the latest stuff, and then kind of just copying it. Like if you have a song, kind of just go and borrow ideas from the latest stuff that's out there. There's nothing against that, and it
No.
makes such a difference when you kind of go, oh cool, I can take this sound from this current hit and kind of apply the idea to my song, and it pretty much just goes from there. And I mean, I have to study that stuff all the time, every week.
So Was it a process? It's not like you listened to a bunch of stuff for a week, a month, or even a year, and it just started popping out that way, or was it gradual? Like, well, now I've got the vocals really right, and then the drums. Did it come in fits and starts and layers, or
Oh
did
yes,
okay?
it's sort of a progressive, slowly kind of thing, and you'll kind of get some ideas and try them, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But then the more the more you do it, then eventually it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm getting a handle on, yeah, like getting the vocals sounding really cool and modern, and where to pan them and all that kind of stuff. And oh, this is what's happening now with the piano, and it's used in these kind of ways. So yeah, it's definitely a slow progression.
Do you have any recollection, like how long it took before you went, wow, I think I'm finally in the ballpark of sounding modern and contemporary?
I sometimes still don't feel that way, and that's, I think that keeps me kind of still searching and kind of going, no, like I need to work harder. I need to work harder. But it I would say it took 5 years before I started going, okay, like this is feeling good.
Mm.
And I'm really hard on myself. Like I'm my worst critic, but I'd say it took a few years.
Well, you know what they say, being your worst critic is also being your best critic.
Mm, yeah.
Anelda, assuming that you were also on board with sounding more current, were there any adjustments that you had to make to your songwriting to accomplish that goal of sounding modern?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first step is also going, I admit that this does not sound current, and then going, well, what can we change? And I don't think you can ever learn enough about it. So just going to classes and meetups and feedback sessions, and just getting the feedback, and then going home and going, well, is it true? And going, okay, how do I change it? And then that's when you start doing the research and you start going, well, who do I sound like and who do I want to sound like? And I grew up with Alanis Morissette and my parents' music, and that's not what's on the radio. So just, I think it came down to finding pop music that I enjoy, because I'm not gonna write Doja Cat, or is that her name?
Yes.
You know, yeah. So finding, like, I love Billie Eilish. I like, finding the people that I connect with and studying their music and going, okay, how can I change what I'm doing to go to that sound? Pretty much.
It takes a lot of it's a lot of honesty, I guess, kind of like going through therapy, that you've got to look inward, and it's got to be a bitter pill, to go, wow, what I do, what I'm comfortable, what my lane is not the lane I want to be in. So yay to both of you for doing that, because many, I would say the majority of people don't. They just go, dude, I do what I do. You either like it or you don't,
Yeah.
but they want to be competitive in a current marketplace, but with stuff that doesn't sound current. So, congrats to both of you for taking that hard inward look. Um, I do remember back when I was still active in the studio, I did the same thing regarding. I don't know that I sounded dated because I was too young at the time when I started. I was 19, but I would take everything that was a hit and lie on my living room floor with a pair of JBL 4311s on the floor, towed in like a pair of headphones, like 3 feet in front of my face, and just listen and make notes on the album covers and on the sleeve that the vinyl came in. And a year later, 2 years, 5 years later, I would go back and look at those notes and go, oh, that's right, that drum sounded so cool, and then figure it out. So it sounds like the process was similar. When you didn't sound current, did you both, were you both like stuck in a similar dated era, or did each of you kind of have your own place that you were stuck in?
I'm sort of a late 90s, 2000s to early 2000s kind of guy. That's where I tend to get stuck. I
Yeah.
think just because that was a big influential time in my life musically. But you?
Yeah, I think when you start picking your own music as a teenager, and I mean, back in the day when we had CDs, because I'm old now, you would buy your CD, you would go home, you'd spend 10 minutes getting that plastic off, then you would
That's true.
take the book and you would just study that thing. You would like listen through it and study it. That was a question.
What era?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you get so deeply into that stuff that when you sit down to write your first song, that's the stuff that's going to come out. That's natural. That's what feels good. It sounds good. But you have to recognize that that's not now. And it's good to have those influences, because I learned a lot of things about lyric writing and harmonies and all these things. You can learn so much from any music, but you can't just write from what you know. You have to write from what you don't know, which means finding what you don't know, I guess.
If you had to pick an artist or a couple of artists that you most sounded like back when you went, okay, I'm really doing this, I'm legitimately a singer-songwriter, what artists were you in a ballpark with?
Ooh,
You might know more than me.
I have no clue. Pretty much just a B grade anyone. Kind of you. I mean,
Yeah.
your love of Alanis Morissette does come through a lot.
Yes.
Or did used to
yeah.
come through a lot.
When I started writing, there was a lot of run-on sentences and lots of adjectives and poetry and very
Yes.
flowery. And then kind of we had a lot of the boy bands and the the Backstreet Boys and the Spice Girls, and so a lot of those kind of melodies that are kind of stretched out and fun, but they're not like punchy.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the lyric aspect for a second. It's interesting that you point out that there were a lot of adjectives and run-on sentences, which I think is also something that many, many songwriters are guilty of in their early stages, which is, I've got to tell every detail of this story, and they often tell it. There's a phrase for it that Robin Frederick uses, and it's eluding me right now, but where you know the story and you assume that the listeners know the story, and you're still filling it up with adjectives and detail and a lot of storyline, and yet somehow it feels incomplete, like the listeners left out in the dark because they don't know the backstory that you know. So how did you transition from writing those run-on sentences to writing stuff that's just more compact and yet still has the ability to fill the listener in on the story you're trying to tell?
Well, one thing that kept coming up in feedback sessions was, for everyone, was for pop, you have to be able to write like you're in first grade, especially country. Being in Nashville, everything goes around country, and I was like, that was so hard for me. It's like, I can't, my pain at all jeans. I was like, no, I don't, no. So that part of it, dumbing it down, is that okay to say dumbing it down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, it's good.
Yeah,
simplifying it so
simplifying.
Especially as you said in country, it's so things they say the simplest things in just unique ways.
Yeah.
But in terms of words used, it's nothing fancy, it's nothing too flowery.
Yeah.
It's just getting that unique idea across, and also making it universal enough that the listener goes, oh, I know that feeling, I know what they're going through, or whatever. And
then the second part of that is rewriting. Because the first thing you write is not going to be the one that's in the song, and it shouldn't be. Every now and then you get a line and it's perfect. It's like, oh, this is inspired. But most of the time, you got to go back and fix it because it's too long. It's not rhyming correctly. You don't have the same amount of syllables as the next line. You just have to go and hack at it until it fits, I think.
Living in Nashville, I mean, that is, in my opinion, there was a 10-year period where I would go there 4, 5, 6 times a year for at least a week each time, and was fairly well accepted and integrated into the community, about as well as you can be from Los Angeles or any town outside of Nashville, because it is its own little bubble. But if you spend any serious time there, it's so astonishing to look at the level of craft that Nashville songwriters have. And let's go back to the dumbing it down aspect of it. Somehow they have perfected dumbing it down to the point of being brilliantly crafted. It doesn't, it ain't just about pickup trucks and my girlfriend wearing cutoffs, going to the local swimming hole with a 6-pack and a blanket.
Mhm.
Just the level of craft is admirable. So you guys are in a
Yeah.
great place to be surrounded. And you mentioned that you would go to writers' nights and listen to feedback. It's cool that you pursued outside opinions and took it seriously, because a lot of people just don't want to know because it's hard to change.
Mhm.
Was there a moment in time when you said, I really need outside opinions, or did it just happen organically over time? How did that come about?
Well, I think pretty early on I joined NSAI, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
I am.
And this being the headquarters, they have amazing kind of resources for writers, for artists, going to their feedback nights, their pitch nights. And at first I was like, "Ugh, you don't know what you're talking about. This song is amazing." And then the more you go, you go, yeah, okay. I knew that, but I was avoiding that. Okay, yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah, okay. I knew that coming in. And the more you go, the more you know what they're going to say, which
Mm.
makes you go, let me fix that before I go in. And then you start getting better feedback and better feedback. But it's hard to be open to that stuff. And also not just listening to your own, but to other people's. Um,
Yeah.
as they're playing it, you go, oh, that's not right, or you should fix that. And if what you're thinking and they're saying starts matching up, that's when you know that you're starting to hear what you need to hear.
That's great that you mentioned listening to other people's stuff. We hear that all the time about the listening panels at the Taxi Road Rally coming up November 3rd this year, by the way. That on the listening panels, yes, everybody wants their song to get, randomly selected and played because they're hoping that somebody on the panel will go, "You're a genius. That's the best music I've ever heard. Sending over a briefcase full of money in my private jet very shortly, and your
We're still
career."
waiting for ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I forgot where I was going with that.
Just listening to other people's
Other
music.
people's
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. It's so funny how good the audience members are at the Road Rally and on Taxi TV, listening to other people's stuff and identifying the problems. Yet when it's time to turn the camera inward, they don't see it about their own music. But eventually, that process of listening to other people's stuff does exactly what it sounds like it did for you,
Yeah.
which is, oh, I'm kind of guilty of that as well.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, do you guys technically co-write everything, or is it sometimes that Anelda is like 98% of the writing with some touch-ups by Sean, and then you kind of hand it over to him and he does his production magic, or is he involved in the crafting of the melody and lyric along the way as well?
I I write most of the melody and lyrics, or I co-write with someone else, and then he will do most of the production, but he will also do some tweaks. He'll go, that line's not good enough. Like he's just saying it out these days. He just goes, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Fix that. So we go back and fix it. And then, so he doesn't per se write with us, but he
Mhm.
does the tweaks that takes it just to the next level. And then he will generally start the production, flesh it out, and we'll just kind of go back and forth on it, not talk for a few days because friction, and then repent and get better about it, and
Mhm.
then it'll come together at some point.
Yeah.
Interesting. And Sean, do you find that you're hearing production ideas at the earliest stages when Anelda gives you a sketch, just melody and lyric played on? Do you write on acoustic guitar or do you write on keyboard?
I'm just on keyboard. I just program everything.
Okay. So when you hear the thing for the first time in the early stages, are you already formulating ideas for where you would go production wise?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's like I'll just hear it clear as day in my head, like, oh, okay, this is what it is, this is what it needs. Other times it'll take me a while and I'll just have to kind of throw stuff at it and kind of see and see what sticks and then work it out. But oh yeah, as soon as she starts playing it, I'll have ideas, I'll start thinking about it, and and then I'll say, this is the direction I'm hearing it. What were you thinking? And then we kind of try and get on the same page.
Yeah.
It's a miracle you guys are still married.
It is.
Yeah.
There are some tense days sometimes where it's like, no, but it should be this, and no, it should be this.
Yeah, I was exaggerating, but you have to, yeah, and we're better at it now than we used to be, but you still have to remember to come at it with a little bit of sugar first. You know, I love what you've done here. Can we talk about this? And just be a little bit kind. So we try.
It's funny, we don't really train the screeners at Taxi per se, because they've already got the talent and the knowledge that they bring to the table to give our members feedback. But the one thing we do train them to do is lead with a positive. So it sounds like you said, bring out the sugar. It's like, I love the sound of your vocal. However, I noticed you're a little pitchy in that second verse, third line.
Yeah.
Open the door,
Exactly.
Do you write with sync in mind, being that you're both from a TV background and do a lot of audio stuff for audio posts on TV related projects? Does that influence your writing style, where you're not just trying to write a great song, but you are thinking about, would this work for sync as you're doing it, or do you worry about that after the song is created and go back to touch it up?
No, I do think about sync. I try and avoid specifics. I try and balance where you have some spaces for dialogue. I try and think of those things, but I try and also have the song be authentic, because people notice when it's not authentic. And I've put out some songs where I was like, that was well crafted, and then it's like nothing. People are like, that's not authentic. They don't enjoy it. And then something we did that was just a guitar vocal, they're obsessed with, because it was a story and it was, so I think if you can find that balance between authenticity, a real story, a story that comes from you, but you're also kind of going, what does sync needed to be? That's what I'm trying to do, and that's tricky.
I think you've accomplished it. Maybe that's your superpower, is that everything of yours that I've heard sounds authentic, and I can also have the thought as I'm listening, like, wow, this would be great for that kind of scene. So, I know that is an issue. A lot of, as the sync industry matures, and as music supervisors kind of level up their craft over the years, they are getting seriously more interested in things that sound authentic. And I think that that's what makes you so appealing, is that the craft is there, the opportunity for sync is there, but it is wholly authentic. It always sounds like you as an artist. And I've never had the thought, listening to your stuff, wonder if she wrote that for sync. So good on you for
nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to do, and it sounds like you guys have put a lot of work into it. Do you, and I'll go to both of you on this, but I want to lead with Anelda. Do you write what the muse brings you? Do you wait for the muse to show up, or do you write at targets and briefs and use that as your jumping off point?
I think it's a bit of both, and I'll often put something in my phone on my little recording app, just these ideas, and I'll just name it like cute indie song or whatever. Then,
great title.
So if there's a brief, I just go look through them and I see if there's an idea I can start writing with. And then if it works out, it works out. And sometimes that song does not want to be that song. It wants to be something different. And I used to try and fit that. I try to make it fit. Now I'm like, let that song be that song, and we'll find a different brief for it. And we'll just start over and write a new song. And I think learning that was hard, because you kind of want to, you just want to win this brief so much, and there's a deadline, and you just, but the song will always be what the song wants to be, in my opinion. So the muse, you got to listen to the muse. And yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I like some of my favorite stuff is stuff that has been to a brief, and it's like, hey, we have only a few days to do this, like, and you just kind of plow through it, and you're not overthinking it. That's been some of, I think, my favorite material that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
And then other times, yeah, she'll just go into a room and just come out with a song, like no brief. It's just like, no, she was just feeling this thing today, and out there is. So it's definitely a bit of both.
So from a production perspective, let's say there's a brief, Anelda goes into the magic room and comes out with something that sounds really great, and your first blush instinct on where to go production wise is X, but the brief is asking for Y. Is it difficult to separate yourself from that first instinct on where you'd go with production in order to deliver the production style that the brief is asking for?
It is tricky, and sometimes we, as Anelda says, we've tried to force it and be like, no, but this is the brief, and then you try and force the song to be something that it's not. Sometimes you can make it work, sometimes you just can't, and you just have to go, look, like this just isn't going to fit this. And every time we've tried to do that, I feel like it never goes through. It's never taken. And she has a really good, like, if she pitches something, she's usually like, yeah, I'm 90% confident that this is gonna like be forwarded, kind of thing. Or she'll be like, no, it's a 50-50, and like she'll know, like we know, like, okay, it's a long shot, we tried, we did our best. But and then sometimes what we'll do is, if it didn't work out, we'll revisit the song later and just go, okay, let's see, we tried to do this, it didn't quite work, let's make it what it wants to be. And then just reproduce it, tweak it how we can.
And then you have two versions. And sometimes you even go and do a different version. You go, oh, this is better than the one we had. So that's what it wanted to be. We just needed that time away from it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, get a little bit specific on instrument sounds and styles as far as the contemporary aspect of production. One of the things that I see all the time, or frequently, is that people are programming these great drum sounds. And let's face it, there are some incredibly good, I mean, even the stuff that comes stock with Logic sounds way better than the best drums you could buy 10 years ago did. So the options are there, the tools are there. Yet I'll hear somebody take a really modern drum sound and then put a turnaround in there that's like tucka 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 tuck 1978, you know, and it's just like, I don't care how modern the sounds are, the style that you use for those sounds just dates you so badly. So let's talk about drums for a minute. Do you have a specific process that you use on programming drums?
Not really. It involves just going through, like, I use a lot of Native Instrument stuff, and it basically just involves going through like a million kicks and snares and kind of trying to decide, like, do I want this to sound like a real drum kit, or do I want it to sound like programmed and pop? And that's always the kind of big distinction, because as soon as you go real drums, you know, if you're trying to sound real, then that can date it pretty quickly. So I kind of tend to stay away from them where possible.
Yeah, you can get to Bon Jovi very fast.
Yes. Been there, done that.
There's your answer for before Bon Jovi.
Nice. Very good. So yeah, I tend to try and just stick with, but it's just basically listening. I'll just go and listen and be like, okay, what songs are out there right now that kind of match the vibe of this, and kind of see what they're doing and pick it apart. And there's, depending on the sort of genre you're in, there's a lot that just don't use real drums, and it's all just the snaps and the kicks and, you know, the 808s and that kind of stuff. So yeah. Kind
of breaks my heart. I mean, the reason I use that console as my background is that is my truest happy place. I love being in the studio, and I haven't been in the studio since like the mid 90s. And hope someday, you know, semi-retirement, I've installed Logic on my laptop, and I hope to go back and doing some recording and production work. But I have noticed what you just mentioned, which is a tremendous movement away from real sounding drums, and that's my forte. if I can pat myself on the back and take a bow, because I'm so modest, I can get a killer drum sound on a real kit really quickly, enough to make the drummer go, wow. And that's always hard, have the drummer come in after the first playback and go, I love the sound of my drums. Like, yeah, I did that. I'm not going to get to use that talent. If I ever do get the opportunity to go back, I'm going to have to really study,
you might be, if you go into country, because we still do some live country stuff, and he gets a really good drum sound too. And that's where you can still sound pretty modern on your drums, is when you get a real country guy playing, because we have the best players in Nashville. We can just call them up, you get the best, and it sounds pretty good. But pop is just a different beast.
For sure.
What's the percentage of, if you had to pick, like the 3 genres that you're in most frequently together on the Anelda stuff, what would those genres be?
Singer songwriter,
kind of
indie pop, and then we do dark pop as well, so moody kind of. I'm still finessing that. I don't feel super confident in that stuff, but that's what I'm kind of more passionate about, which is funny that that's the thing I'm not good at. So the singer songwriter stuff is the stuff that has gotten the most signed, the most placements. We just seem to fit into that one pretty naturally.
Do you find that you have to be a bit of an actress when you're writing something that's out of your lane a little bit, like the dark stuff? Do you have to like mentally put yourself in that place, or?
Yes, I'm a bit of a chameleon. Like, you can tell my accent's not the same anymore. I'm supposed to speak differently. So if I'm singing a dark pop song, I'll pull up a bunch of Ruel or whatever, and I'll kind of try and get into that vibe, and I'll try and do that. And he likes to tell me I need to get into the space. He's like, turn off the lights. Get sad.
You got to get sad.
But I also feel like you do have to almost think of it a bit more scientifically and go, she's actually going this way with her O's, and she's this close to the mic, or she's staying away. And there's a little bit of stuff to remember when you're doing the vocals that is not just feeling.
Interesting. Let's stay on vocals for a second. Sean, do you produce Anelda's vocals, or does she go in the studio on her own and do it, and then you just comment and you guys agree on what you agree on, and she goes back and tweaks? Or do you actually sit behind the console and go, sing it like this, dear?
We used to.
We used to, and then at some point it was just like, this is just a waste of manpower. Like,
I'm an engineer. I might as well do my own vocals. Why are we doubling up on the time? So I just do them myself. I do all the backings, all the stacks. Most of the time he will do the comp, unless I'm feeling super kind of like it's my baby, which it shouldn't be. But I'm like very possessive of the feeling I want. Then I'll do it myself. But he can find the good takes most of the time.
And she'll usually play me an early kind of pass, and then I can kind of go, oh wait, you're singing maybe too soft here, and I'll give a few notes. But otherwise, she does it herself.
I think that's great. I've done a panel or two at the Road Rally. I've done stuff in our newsletter about, there seems to be a hesitancy among ladies to learn engineering and production, which I find just crazy. I mean, there's no reason that a woman couldn't and shouldn't do it every bit as well as a man. Gender should have nothing to do with it. And you will see that women are very prolific with the visual arts using computers. But yet, so many taxi members that I speak to that are females will reach out to them and say, oh, by the way, we've got an opportunity. We don't even have time to run it as a listing. We've got to send something in an hour. And we know that your song is great. However, they need a clean version of it. And the response so frequently is, oh, I've got to wait for my husband to get home or my boyfriend to get home because he's the one that will record it and mix it. So hats off to you for learning the engineering and production stuff. Did you know that stuff before you started because of your background in TV and doing audio post, or did you have to learn it as it applies to your artist stuff?
Well, I attended film school, and they kind of take you through the technical stuff as well, not just so they kind of try and teach you from the beginning up. And it's not my strong suit. Like, I don't enjoy cables and gear. I don't want to be on my knees under a thing, so it's not my favorite thing, but I can get by. Um, and it's easy to learn. It feels like such a big thing, I think. Maybe women are like, oh, it feels like such a big thing. It's kind of scary. It's not. It's like, push it in here, you put it in there, tweak a few things, and you can learn. And you can learn on YouTube. It's, you just have to find the confidence, I think, to go, today I'm just gonna learn about compressors or whatever.
I love compressors.
Mm-hmm.
I love
They're
compressors. So, okay, well, let's dig into the nuance of that a little bit more, which is EQ. I found that as an up and coming engineer back in the day, that I really didn't understand the power of an equalizer. And you have to learn. Like, it gets to the point where you can hear a vocal and go, it's got a little bit too much 700 in it. You know where that bump is just by ear training, and you can dip that out. So, are you that kind of engineer as well? Can you hear a bump at 700 and take it out?
Yeah, I can hear it. I just want him to do the work.
That's actually true.
It's true.
That's just so true.
Yeah, like he'll send me the mix, and I will make this detailed list of stuff I want changed, and he enjoys doing that stuff, so it works out.
Wow. Do you guys ever fully co-write on anything?
Yeah, sometimes. Like if I write a track first, then
Well, we consider the track part of the co-write. So
Okay.
even if I'm writing with another person, since he's doing all the work on the track, we just split it 3 ways for publishing and writing and master. And we just tell that upfront to writers, because even though he's not writing lyrics or anything, he's doing a third of the work.
Yeah.
So yes, I guess that's the answer.
Sean, do you ever do your own stuff that doesn't have Anelda involved? I know you work with other artists in your studio and stuff, but are you ever the artist, and do you ever write for yourself?
I do write like tracks by myself. So like if there's instrumental briefs, I will sometimes write to them. I'll try, hip hop kind of stuff and whatever, just kind of instrumental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's not like I'm an artist or anything like that. But yeah, I do write by myself.
And do you also sing vocals? Are you ever part of the background stack? No. Okay.
I might be in this. I might be in the stack sometimes, but
when it's like just below where I can get,
yeah, because then I can kind of sing where her low
Mm.
voice kind of cuts out. I'll kind of go up and just kind of fill in some of the gaps there, but I'll usually stack myself a lot and make it, and then bring it down really low in level.
That just gives you that chunk at the bottom.
Yeah, it's more of a textural thing than a note almost.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally get that. Anelda, when you co-write with other people, are some of them or many of them Taxi members? And if so, how did you meet them?
That's a good question. Somewhere. Andrew Jordan, I don't know if you know him.
Oh yeah.
Hi Andrew, if you're watching. He's awesome. He's so friendly.
I actually have a quote from Andrew taped to the door of my specific office.
I bet.
Yeah.
He's like a guru.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we write. He sends me tracks. I'm busy writing one with him now. Who else did
I'm not
couple people.
Yeah.
That I met at the rally.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the rest of them are just in town, local, that we meet through whatever. Yeah.
What's the process like typically for you when you co-write? How often is it you reaching out saying, hey, do you want to work on this, versus them reaching out to you, would you like to work on this?
That's a tough one. These days, I think COVID changed that for me, where I just stopped co-writing, and then I tried a few Zoom writes, and it felt kind of weird, and I actually started writing by myself a lot more, and only recently started co-writing again, which has been like once every couple weeks. So it's not been that much, actually, unless someone sends me a track and I just work on it.
Is it difficult? I don't know. I've never written anything, but I don't know that I would be able to take somebody else's track and sit down and listen to it, come up with a top line for it, a melody and a lyric. It just doesn't feel natural to me, yet so many people
Yeah.
do it. Is that something that you do and do well, or is it not?
I do it.
I'd say she does it well.
I don't feel like I do it well yet. That feels like something I'm just starting to find my feet in. But that's where the co-writing, not the co-writing, the rewriting thing has come in, knowing that I need to just keep going at it. Like, I can't just write something into the track and go, that's terrible. You just got to keep going. And idea number 10 is going to be the one that you go with. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I always say vocal number one is the one you go with. I used to tell people,
Yeah, vocal, yeah.
yeah, I'm just
or the demo vocal.
right. I'm just setting levels. Go ahead and sing for me, top to
Right.
bottom. That's
Yeah.
always the one, you know.
Yeah, it's not like that in songwriting, unfortunately, for me.
Yeah. um, Sean, when you work with other artists in the studio, and now that you guys have kind of learned all this stuff, you know, you've built a foundation and you keep adding to the foundation and you've got chops now. When you try to bring what you've learned to bear for indie artists, is it difficult to get them to see the light? Do you have to play, you know, team psychologist and coach and all that? Or do they usually go, wow, that dude knows so much, let's do it?
It's a bit of both. Sometimes it's definitely kind of asking questions like, well, what is your intention for this? Are you hoping to use it for sync? If so, we might consider some things, etc., etc. So there's definitely some gentle kind of prodding and the psychology there to kind of try and lead and help people pick the right songs and that kind of stuff. That's usually the biggest issue, is like people picking just the wrong songs that do sound dated, and then it's like, well, we could produce it and it'll sound great, but it's still kind of, the song still feels dated. So that's a big problem. And then other people are just like, whatever you say, we're in. Like, let's go for this, and let's go for the ride.
Wow, you guys get a discount. Come back soon.
Yes, exactly.
That's always such a pleasure working with somebody that's like, that's a great idea. You know, you don't want people to just take everything you say for granted and go for it, because then they're not thinking deeply enough. But if they've thought about it, considered it, and go with it, that's a pleasure. You know, those moments make the studio a lot of fun versus punching in syllables for a week.
Oh yeah, no.